Hi, folks. This is Dr. Rob Cywes, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Janae. I am the Carb Addiction Doc, and she's the Carb Addiction Mom. And down below us here, we've got the Carb Addiction Dog, kind of the Carb Addiction family. And we're here to give you a pregnancy update. But one of the things that, as we've gone through this pregnancy, and I posted something on Instagram about this a couple of days ago, is that more and more doctors see pregnancy as a disease, as a state of disease, and they're testing this and testing that and putting on this supplement and that supplement as if like we've never carried babies before and women are useless at carrying babies. It is so, so sad, but I understand it because of all the illnesses that are caused by the standard American diet. That's really what they're looking at. There are a couple of other diseases on either side of pregnancy, but generally women know how to carry babies. It's what they do to themselves by eating the standard American diet, by eating so much carbohydrate and snacking their way through pregnancies that cause so many problems that now need supplements and blood tests and everything. And the coolest part with Janae is how perfect her pregnancy has been to date. Touch wood over here. She's still got a ways to go. But why don't you tell us how you've done with your pregnancy and some of the bizarre things you've encountered as a first-time pregnant lady in how the healthcare system has handled you.
Sure. So as of yesterday, I was 34 weeks, and I've gained 19 pounds total in 34 weeks. And I felt really great. I mean, I have really no complaints whatsoever. I think we did another video on I had a little bit of a rough patch from week 6 through 16, kind of my nausea patch, but was able to get through that with some of the just strategies in terms of eating earlier in the day, and then of course adding lots of salt to the food and drinking the electrolyte drink from Redmond as well. And that was really it. I mean, I have absolutely no other complaints about pregnancy. I felt really great. My energy levels have been high. I've had no cravings whatsoever. I had that little bit of period of time where I had an aversion to red meat, but that was it. Now I'm eating red meat all the time. There's really nothing I don't eat or drink in terms of a really carnivore, keto-ish diet. I eat all of the meats now, lots of cheese, dairy. I'll occasionally have a cup of coffee. I'm not drinking coffee every day, but it's just because I don't feel like it. I wouldn't deny myself if I did. But that's pretty much it. And I just feel very fortunate, very blessed, but I do think that the diet has had a large part to do with it. In terms of going into the doctor, it's been interesting. The appointments, it doesn't seem like we really do that much during the appointments. They measure the belly and they listen to the heartbeat, but those are things that luckily I have somebody at home to do anyway.
But
So
what do they do always at every visit?
they try to do blood work. And because Rob has always done a really good job of tracking my blood work very closely, we actually haven't done all of the blood work that they've requested because we already had some labs from him and some other things that we knew weren't an issue. And then I'll let you talk about the glucose test.
Yeah, before I talk about the glucose tolerance and how important the sugary diet is, one of the things that is amazing about Janae, and understand that we've gone through this pregnancy basically under COVID lockdown. Janae's been out 2 or 3 times since the 3rd of March or the 2nd of March when she first came home, and she traveled a lot. She works in California, so she was always traveling. To be under lockdown conditions, hardly going out, that does affect tremendously the emotion management conditions that you live under. And pregnancy is a hugely stressful environment, both physiologically as well as mentally. And it gives people often the permission to do the drug they're addicted to most often. And unfortunately, or fortunately, sorry, most people do quit smoking cigarettes or using nicotine products. Most people do quit drinking alcohol. And it was almost apologetically that Janae said she still has the odd cup of coffee, actually does drink coffee from time to time, but it's almost with apology. And yet nobody ever discusses the picking out on carbohydrates, which is probably more toxic and more harmful than all of those other things combined to the health of our babies. So the question I have for Janae is, what have you done under these lockdown conditions to deal, and still working full time, with the stress and the strain of the mental aspects of your pregnancy?
Yeah, so I think those of you who have watched some of our videos in the past know that I'm a very social person and I love human connection. So, one of the things that I always make sure that I'm doing daily is keeping up with my really dear friends and colleagues. My family, we're a very close family, so I definitely talk to them every day, if not multiple times a day. And then we've done special things because I know this is a really hard time during COVID. We've done special things like set up special Zoom meetings. Zoom happy hours. Of course, I drink a mocktail with some of our friends, like our dear friends in Washington, D.C., and other places around the country, or even virtual coffee dates. So those have been really important for us to continue.
But that that
Daily.
that noise, that sound you just heard, is the other big emotion management strategy that you have.
That's right, our dog Tabo. So a lot of you know about our dog Tabo. We'll post some more pictures of him, but he every day he's very routine at around 11:30 a.m. or noon. He wants to go for his he has already gone for one walk early in the morning with Rob when he's up, and then we go for our 11:30 noon walk, and then we also go for one around 5 or 5:30 p.m., which is why you hear him a little bit whimpering a little bit because we're overdue for that latter walk. So anyway, we'll go right after this, but he's been another big part of our emotional
Yeah,
management.
but the things that Janae does from an emotion management perspective, physical activity, the human connection, walking the dog, her spiritual life, those are the things that have become routine strategy. She doesn't even know it. She can't even articulate it in a conscious way because it's just who she is and what she does. And her emotion management diversity of how she handles those things prevents her from needing the fridge and the pantry as that dysfunctional emotion management tool. So eating and drinking is done for the nutritional value as best we can and as best we understand the pregnancy for both the baby and the mother, rather than for the emotive management strategy that most American women eat their way through their pregnancy. So let's get back to the one of the biggest concerns with pregnancy and with the health of the baby in the modern era is gestational diabetes and insulin resistance, chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption. So one of the things that we do with pregnant mothers is we do something called an oral glucose tolerance test. Now, just to give you the metrics, is that if someone has gestational diabetes, there's a 7 times higher risk 7 times higher risk of fetal death. So there's a 7 times greater risk of losing that baby than someone who doesn't have gestational diabetes. That's just through that. And then there's preeclampsia, there is premature rupture of membranes, there is a variety of premature delivery conditions that occur to gestational mothers, and then the babies come out underdeveloped, floppy, and obese. So a high cesarean section rate. All of those are complications, let alone the complications to the mom. And if a mom does have gestational diabetes, the statistics are that the majority of those will be full-blown type 2 diabetics within 5 years of that pregnancy. So it is a condition that OBs pay a lot of attention to. It's the disease of pregnancy. but here's the interesting thing. As Janae said, she's on a ketogenic diet. So the standard oral glucose tolerance test is to give a woman 75 grams of sugar to consume. Now, 75 grams of sugar is more carbohydrate in one go than Janae probably consumes in 1 to 2 weeks. Okay? She's profoundly insulin sensitive. We've reviewed her numbers on previous podcasts, and she remains that way with a very low insulin, even lower insulin and C-peptide now than it was a month or two ago. Very healthy A1C and lowish blood sugars. And she's not wearing a CGM again today, but on the CGM, typically running between 65 and 75 milligrams per deciliter on her blood sugars. So a very insulin sensitive state. If she had to eat 75 grams of carbohydrates, that's like that's like a non-alcoholic drinking a gallon of whiskey. It's not a good idea. But to be able to convince our OB, who's a great person, we chose him specifically because he is so good at what he does technically, but to be able to convince him that she is different to the run-of-the-mill standard American diet patients that she sees is so difficult. And we've had to show them our CGM data. We've had to show them, and even then, they still do blood sugars. They won't let her leave the office unless they've checked her blood glucose. It just baffles my mind. Can you think how effectively a CGM would be for every pregnant mother? Continuous glucose monitor? Because it tells you exactly what you're eating and drinking. And you can then self-modify your behavior. Plus, if the doctors can monitor it, they can tell you right away when you're starting to get into trouble with your carbohydrate consumption. CGMs are so much better of a tool than the archaic test that's called an insulin or a glucose tolerance test. And when we ask them what they test, they just test blood sugar. They don't even test insulin, let alone C-peptide, when they're doing an OGTT. They just look at blood sugars. So it is an archaic, very poorly used system, and never do they counsel the pregnant mothers not to eat carbohydrates. They'd much rather put them on insulin than get them to stop or address their carbohydrate consumption. That's why pregnancy is an illness, not a wonderful state of bringing life to this world. What do you say to that?
No, I think it's absolutely right. And I think, like you said, we're sort of the exception to the rule, but I think it's been a good experiment or a good proof in the pudding, not in the non-carbohydrate pudding point. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned from it. So if any of you are on this same journey or potentially looking to get pregnant or trying anyway, I think it's been a very, very successful experiment for us for sure.
One of the other interesting things is Janae sits here now. She's 34 weeks pregnant. We've just come back from being away for a couple of days. And can you raise your leg up?
I don't know.
I don't know if you can see that on the screen. But there's absolutely no edema, no swelling. There's none. High salt, pretty close to no carbohydrate diet. No edema, no swelling. That's normal. It's little things like that. So her heart function is fine. She's not hypertensive. In fact, if anything, her blood pressure is a little bit low. Baby's moving well. All conditions are going really, really well. It shouldn't be an expectation that you're going to swell up when you're pregnant. It should not be an expectation. It shouldn't be an expectation that you have to take all these supplements. Yes, Janae takes fish oil and a prenatal multivitamin. Do we need to? Probably not. And that's more a irrational fear on my part and on her part. But we over-supplement. These women that are taking 10, 12 supplements, along with their Big Mac fries and Dr. Pepper, it boggles my mind that we've turned pregnancy into a disease.